This week, marking the first anniversary of the deadly attack at the U.S. Capitol. Back on January 6, 2021, a large crowd of Trump supporters overtook the building in an effort to overturn Trump's defeat in the 2020 election. This past Thursday, President Biden saying something like this can never happen again.
For the first time in our history, a president had not just lost an election, he tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power as a violent mob breached the Capitol. But they failed. They failed. And on this day of remembrance, we must make sure that such attack never happens again.
Joining us today, Winthrop University political professor, Dr. Scott Huffmon. Professor, thanks for coming on. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Listen, this past week we marked the 1 year anniversary since the January 6th attack, domestic terrorism there at the U.S. Capitol. Going forward in this year, what, if anything, do you hope that is accomplished? I mean, we've got the January 6th commission in the House. Do you think anything substantive will happen, not only from I guess, a prosecutorial standpoint, but also legislatively or even culturally, perhaps even the bigger thing?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think enough culturally is going to happen. I'm a very religious guy. I'm an ordained elder in my church. I've preached in my churches, and the only place that I feel is almost as holy as my church is the Capitol. And I've dedicated my life, my professional life, to studying the American government and the Constitution. And I feel these people are domestic terrorists, and they attempted insurrection to overthrow the government. So personally, I wish the American culture would take it very, very seriously, based on my professional understanding of what happened. Now, realistically, no, both sides have already taken the narrative and run with it. Some have diminished what actually happened. Some have said, oh, these people are patriots, which is ironic because they were literally the exact opposite. But more importantly, this has turned much of the Republican Party not into the conservative party that I grew up with, you grew up with, but very much into the are you with Trump or are you the enemy party? And, conservatives, Republicans are getting primaried because they weren't seen as loyal enough. When it comes to things like January 6th, we are going to see a tumultuous election season, not just when the national elections happen, but in the primary season as a direct result of January 6th, where it will be a litmus test in many conservative Republican primaries as to who is faithful and who isn't.
You're a student of history, a professor of history. What do you think the history books will say about January 6th?
Well, the history books are going to say quite a bit. Obviously, they are going to see it as an attack on democracy. Hopefully, our democracy will prevail. But more importantly than just the act itself, there will be just as many chapters written about how this was interpreted, how two sides literally saw the same incident and interpreted it and the facts in very different ways. History will not be kind to this event. History will be, I think, amazed at the level of facts that we have in cameras that future historians will have access to versus what people say happened. It's really, I'm looking forward to my retirement reading those brilliant historians' take on what happened last year. I wish I wasn't living through it.
And as a man who specifically studies a lot about South Carolina politics, let's talk about Lindsey Graham. The day of, he came out and pretty forcefully spoke out against the president. Basically said, hey, I'm throwing my chips in. No more. I can't do this anymore. You have since seen him and other members of the Republican Party walk that back quite a bit to where we are today.
Lindsey Graham is most amazing at catching the prevailing winds. He has sailed his ship of power through tumultuous waters many, many times. And on January 6th, he saw something that was horrific, an attack on the place where he has devoted his life. He had a flash of horror, but afterwards, he fell back into line. And, at times he is seen as too liberal by the Republicans. He's seen as too conservative by the Democrats, but he tacks his sails and threads those waters so that he is always with the side that gives him the most power and influence. And he's doing it again, and he'll continue to do it. He's excellent at this. So yeah, it's true. Lindsey Graham was not a fan of what was happening on January 6th, but a year later, those winds have changed.
Looking ahead to the year, more broadly speaking, politically, midterms going to be a big deal. How do you see them sort of breaking out?
Well, for one thing, a lot of, despite how passionate I am about what happened on January 6th, most folks in America are still working hard, feeding their families. They don't have a lot of bandwidth to focus on this. They're going to be more concerned about the economy. And a lot of folks feel the economy is struggling. They're worried about inflation. And these things, these pocketbook issues are going to come back and hurt Biden and the Democrats in 2022. The sitting president of the United States has only gained members in the House of Representatives twice in all of American history. Usually the party of the sitting president loses seats in the midterm elections. So that's most probable to happen again. The question is how many and what are they blaming on Biden and the Democrats? Their failure to achieve any infrastructure, bills like the Build Back Better, the economy, or what? So that's what the Democrats have to worry about. The Republicans right now, especially in red states like I live in, they mostly are focused on making sure their districts are as safe for themselves as humanly possible. But it's the national elections that we really have to pay attention to.
I think it was James Carville, who once said it's the economy, stupid, back in the 1992 race. Evidently, the elder Bush did not get it at the time, and we'll see whether or not Mr. Biden gets it this time around. All right, Scott Huffmon for us there in Rock Hill at Winthrop. Professor, thanks as always. We appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
All right, more Flashpoint after this.